Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be spelunking through the world of software requirements engineering.
Oh, spelunking. I like that. It really captures the sense of exploration we're going for here, right?
Exactly. And our trusty guide for this expedition is this document you sent over called Software Requirements Engineering 1.pdf. You ready to unearth some insights?
Absolutely. Let's dig in.
Well, the first thing that struck me was how the source really emphasizes the challenges inherent in software projects.
It's like the document says, building software is often venturing into uncharted territory.
Yeah, and that uncharted territory bit, it kind of sets the stage for all the potential pitfalls that can pop up, right?
It's not like constructing a bridge where you have, a pretty fixed blueprint to work from.
Yeah.
Software projects, they often deal with these like constantly evolving needs.
Right, and those evolving needs can lead to some pretty alarming statistics. I mean, did you see that only 19% of organizations actually deliver successful projects consistently?
Wow, 19%. That's that's a pretty dismal success rate.
Yeah, I know, right? It makes you wonder why software projects are so prone to failure.
Yeah, what makes them so different from building a bridge? You wouldn't expect that kind of failure rate for a bridge, right?
No, not at all. I mean, with all the advancements in technology, you'd think software development would be getting easier.
Well, the source seems to suggest that it's not getting easier, and it highlights a couple of those big reasons why. Things like, for one, incomplete requirements.
Ah, yeah, like trying to build a house without a full set of blueprints, right?
Exactly. And then the other one, lack of user involvement.
Oh, that's a biddy. Kind of like designing a car without ever consulting with, actual drivers.
Yeah, you might end up with a product that works on a technical level, but it totally mislit the mark when it comes to what users actually need.
So, how do we avoid ending up with these digital lemons? Well, the source jumps into a discussion about the critical role of requirements in the whole software development lifecycle, or SDLC, as the cool kids call it.
Right, SDLC. But acronyms aside, I think the key takeaway here is that no matter what specific SDLC model a project uses, whether it's waterfall, agile, or something else, it all comes down to understanding and managing those requirements effectively.
So these requirements, are they kind of like the DNA of a software project, the blueprint that determines how everything will turn out?
That's a great analogy. They really are the bridge between what users need and what the developers actually build.
Okay, so let's make this a little more concrete. Let's say you need to keep better track of all your communication with clients. That's the need.
Right, the need. And the requirement might be something like, let's say, a system that lets you log calls, schedule follow-ups, and then even analyze all those client interactions.
So you're taking that need and turning it into a specific, tangible solution.
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of our deep dive today, the world of requirements engineering, or RE for short.
RE, love a good acronym. And this source breaks down RE into a few key steps. We've got elicitation, analysis, specification, and validation. Sounds
Wow.
pretty systematic.
It's like almost like a detective process for uncovering what a software project truly needs.
Ooh, I like that. So you've got your detective hat on, and the first step is elicitation, right? Gathering information from users and stakeholders.
Exactly. Then you move on to analysis, where you refine all that information, figure out what's most important.
Okay, so you've got your clues. Now you need to make sense of them.
Precisely. And that leads to the specification phase, where you translate everything into clear, documented requirements.
The evidence report, so to speak.
You got it. And finally, you have validation, which is all about making sure those requirements are accurate and actually aligned with the overall project goals.
So validation is like double-checking your work, making sure you haven't missed anything crucial.
Absolutely. And speaking of crucial, this whole validation step reminded me of a pretty chilling example from the source, the Patriot missile failure.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a sobering read. So for those who haven't heard of it, during the Gulf War, there was this, a tiny error in the software calculations for the Patriot missile system.
And that tiny error was buried deep within the requirements.
And it ended up having tragic consequences.
It really underscores how even seemingly minor oversights in requirements engineering can have huge real-world consequences.
It's almost terrifying to think about, right? I mean, you'd think something as critical as missile defense software would have been triple-checked, quadruple-checked.
Well, it highlights another important aspect of requirements. They're not static. They can, and often do, change and evolve throughout a project.
So it's not a one and done kind of thing. You've got to be constantly reevaluating, refining.
Right, that's where iteration comes in. You keep revisiting and refining those requirements as the project progresses. It's an ongoing process.
Because you're never going to get them perfect, but you can strive to get pretty close.
Exactly. It's all about that continuous improvement, right?
It's like a constant back and forth, gathering information, refining it, and adapting as you go makes you realize there's a lot more to software development than just, sitting in a dark room coding.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it brings up another fascinating aspect, something that's really highlighted in this source, the human side of requirements engineering.
The human side. Okay, that's interesting because you often think of software development as, this very technical field, but this source really emphasizes the importance of soft skills for a requirements engineer.
Soft skills, right. Not something you typically associate with, with a tech-heavy role.
So, what exactly are we talking about here? What kind of soft skills are we looking at?
Well, the source specifically mentions empathy,
Okay, empathy, yeah.
communication
Okay,
skills,
so, yeah.
and even conflict resolution.
Oh, wow. Conflict resolution, huh? I mean, now that you mention it, it makes sense because you're not just dealing with lines of code, you're dealing with people.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to, translate those complex technical needs into something that the developers can actually work with, that requires some serious communication skills.
Yeah, for sure. And then, navigating all those different stakeholder perspectives, and sometimes those perspectives might clash, right?
Absolutely. And that's where those conflict resolution skills come in handy.
So a requirements engineer is kind of like a diplomat in the world of software development.
I like that.
Yeah.
A diplomat, yeah. They got to keep everyone happy.
Right, trying to find that common ground. And it makes you wonder if these soft skills, if they're transferable to other fields as well.
That's a really good point.
I mean, think about it. You've got architects designing buildings, event planners putting together these huge gatherings, doctors diagnosing patients. I mean, in all these fields, understanding and clearly communicating needs is crucial.
Absolutely. It just highlights how valuable those skills really are. Being able to listen, empathize, and then articulate, sometimes very complex information in a way that everyone can understand. It's essential.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of communication and understanding, this source also dives into another critical aspect of requirements engineering, requirements management.
Oh, yeah, requirements management, very important. Because it's not enough to just, gather and define those requirements. You need a system for keeping track of everything.
Right. So it's like the organizational backbone of the project.
Exactly. You've got to maintain order, make sure everything's consistent, and be able to adapt to those inevitable changes that always pop up.
So what does that look like in practice? What kind of things are involved in this whole requirements management process?
Well, the source lists a whole bunch of activities, things like defining what they call the requirements baseline.
Okay, the baseline.
Then you got to evaluate any changes, and then meticulously track the status of each and every requirement.
Wow, it sounds like a full-time job in itself, just keeping all those plates spinning.
It really highlights how crucial this aspect is,
Yeah.
because without effective requirements management, even the most carefully gathered requirements they can get lost in the shuffle.
Right, and then you end up with confusion, delays, and ultimately, project failure.
It's all about maintaining control and clarity, especially amidst the complexity that's just inherent in software development.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about the challenges inherent in software development, the crucial role of those requirements, the intricacies of requirements engineering, the human element, and then the importance of effective management. It's been pretty eye-opening, seeing all these different pieces that have to come together to create the software we use every day. But what does all of this mean for us, the users? How can we make our voices heard, advocate for what we need, and make sure the technology we use is actually built, with a deep understanding of its intended purpose?
Well, that's where the source concludes with a really thought-provoking question.
Oh, let's hear it.
It asks, if even small errors in software requirements can have major consequences, how can we as users and consumers better advocate for our needs? How can we ensure that the technology we use is actually built with a deep understanding of its intended purpose?
It really makes you think, how can we be more than just passive users?
Right, because we often just kind of accept whatever technology is thrown our way.
Exactly. But we do have a voice. We can actually shape that technology.
We absolutely can. And it's not just about, complaining when something crashes or glitches.
Right, it's got to be more proactive.
Exactly. Being proactive, advocating for what we actually need.
So, what does that look like in practice? How can we actually make a difference?
Well, I mean, there are a few things we can do, like, you know, providing detailed feedback during beta testing,
Oh, yeah, beta testing, good point.
taking those user surveys seriously,
Hmm.
not just rushing through them.
Yeah, the surveys can be tedious, but they're important.
They are. And even, just having open conversations with developers about our needs.
So it's about being more engaged in the process, right?
Exactly. It's like that old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Haha, yeah, I remember that one. So the more we as users engage in the process, the better the chances of actually getting software that actually meets our needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe even avoiding some of those, those disastrous consequences that can arise from misaligned requirements.
Right, because when users and developers are on the same page, that's when the magic happens.
It's all about bridging that gap between what users need and what developers create.
And that's how we end up with technology that's not only functional, but truly serves its purpose.
Absolutely. Technology that's designed with the user in mind.
Well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes a little terrifying world of software requirements engineering.
We've learned about the challenges, the importance of those requirements, and the critical role that communication and collaboration play in the whole process.
And who knew soft skills were so crucial in a technical field, right?
Right. It really is a multifaceted field.
Huge thank you to you for joining us on this journey, and a special thanks to you for providing that amazing source material.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
And to all our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has left you with a new appreciation for all the work that goes into creating the software we use every day.
And remember, your voice matters.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.